بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين سيدنا مولانا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا قائد قول المحجبين وشفيع المذنبين وسيد ولدان والفخر محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. So we're in the last few nights of Ramadan, the blessed month of Ramadan. This is going into the 29th night of Ramadan, tomorrow being the 29th day, falling on a Friday. And some of the righteous amongst our ummah have stated that when Ramadan, the 29th day, falls upon a Friday, and the night before is Laylatul Jum'ah, the night before is the Thursday night, or in the Islamic day, the Friday night, then there is a good opportunity that this might be Laylatul Qadr, the night of great value, the night of great worth. So just as a reminder to myself and others that we should try to avail ourselves of this opportunity, if indeed, inshallah, it's Laylatul Qadr, and even if it's not, it's still a Layla min Layali Ramadan, one of the nights of Ramadan, as we are closing in on the end of this blessed month and the beginning of Shawwal and the Eid. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the stamina and the wherewithal and fortitude to observe at least some part of this blessed night in prayer, in dhikr, in contemplation, in istibsar, in mushahada, in muraja'a, in muraqaba. So just as there are devotions, ritual devotions of the body, there are also ritual devotions of the heart, which is the maqsood, which is the objective. And so any opportunity that we avail ourselves to do that is one that should not be missed. So we're going to look at some of the verses from the 29th juz, so the penultimate juz, second to last juz of the Quran. And specifically, we will look at Surah Al-Muzammil, the one enfolded in your cloak, and that corresponds to the 73rd chapter of the Quran, 73rd surah of the Quran, and the قوله تعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه وينقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا. First verses. So this is an early Meccan surah, at least most of it. The translator said that part Medini in the last surah, the last verse in the Quran, some of it might have been revealed in Al-Madinah, Al-Munawwara, because it is a type of rukhsa, dispensation from the earlier period of obligatory tahajjud, or obligatory night prayer for the Prophet ﷺ, and according to some of the ulama, for the followers of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Whatever the case may be, it was one of the first surahs that was revealed after Surah Al-Alaq. Surah Al-Alaq, when the Prophet ﷺ was in Ghar Hira, the cave of Hira, and the Archangel Gabriel came to him and instructed him to recite, and the Prophet ﷺ said, Ma ana biqari, I am not a reciter, 3 times, and then he shook him, and then he revealed the first wahi to him, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. And then there was what was called فترة الوحي. So there was a span, according to the majority, or at least the soundest opinion, of something like 2.5 years before the next wahi, before the next revelation came to the Prophet ﷺ. So this is what's called fatra, the lapse, or the space between the 2 revelations. And then the next surah to reveal after that, some discussion amongst ulama. Some say it was Al-Muddathir, which is the surah that comes after this in the juz, and some say that it was Al-Muzammil, this particular surah. Wallahu a'lam bis-sawab. But in either case, it was one of the early Meccan surahs. So here, as we have stated throughout our discussions, when the Quran is addressing the second person singular, it's addressing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So here the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being addressed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, the one who is enfolded in your cloak. And this was either due to the ru'b, or the kind of heightened state, I guess is the best way we could say it, that the Prophet ﷺ was in, if this indeed was sometime after the Surah Al-Alaq, or because the Prophet ﷺ was asleep and he was wrapped up in his cloak. So its origin should be al-mutazammil, but in Arabic sometimes letters can be dropped for kathrat al-isti'mal, or frequency of use and ease of pronunciation. So the one wrapped up in the cloak, Ya ayyuhal muzammil. And they say that why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala address the Prophet ﷺ this way? Why didn't he say Ya ayyuhan nabi, like in other verses? بلغ ما أنزل إليك, like in some of the verses, بلغ, convey that which has been revealed to you. They say, as we know, this the Quran was revealed in the Arabic language that was the spoken and the understood language, with all of its rhetorical devices of the 7th century Arabian Peninsula. And so what the Arabs used to do, and even the Prophet ﷺ did this with his son-in-law and cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib, when one time Ali ibn Abi Talib he's married to Fatima, his daughter, and there was some dispute amongst them, and so the Prophet ﷺ said to him, "Qum ya Aba Turab." He was like lying in sitting, and there was dirt and dust about him. He said, "Qum ya Aba Turab," yani, stand, Abu Turab, Aba Turab, yani, the one who has dust upon him. And this is kind of a term of endearment, so that Sayyidina Ali would know that he's not upset with him. So he's kind of using a playful way to engage with him, this moniker. So similarly here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yulatif an-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he's being gentle with him, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, right? Oh, the one that you're wrapped up in a cloak. And I think even in other languages, in English even, we may do something like that. We may say, oh, the one who's wrapped up in your books, or the one who's wrapped up in your work, come and talk to me now. So this was a kind of way of endearment. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا نِصْفَهُ وَانقُصْ مِنْهُ قَلِيلًا أَوْ زِدْ عَلَيْهِ وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. Stay up throughout the night, all but a small part of it, half, or a little less, or a little more, and then رَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا, tartil. Like here, the ulama said that in the beginning of the Prophet ﷺ, his da'wah, his mission, the tahajjud, or the night prayer, was something that was obligatory, and this was something even made obligatory before the 5 prayers. And later, when the 5 ritual prayers of the day came, then this became mansukh. This became abrogated, as we see in the last verse, the 20th verse of this surah, which is the last verse. But in the beginning, it is said that one opinion, anyway, that it was obligatory on the Prophet ﷺ. Another opinion said that it was not, that it was recommended. But in either case, the Prophet ﷺ did it. And another opinion said also for the early followers of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, they also prayed this tahajjud, or night prayer. And tahajjud means tahajjada, because it means to arise from sleep. So it means a period of prayer after one has slept. Amma qiyam al-layl means any type of night prayer after Isha, or even after Maghrib, some of them said. So قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, so stand throughout the night, or accept a small part of it. So this is what we call istisna. إِلَّا قَلِيلًا نِصْفَهُ, like half, أَوْ انْقُصْ مِنْهُ, or less than half, قَلِيلًا, a little bit less than half is a way to interpret it. أَوْ زِدْ عَلَيْهِ, right, or do more than that, right, or a little more, like a little more than the half. So like 2/3, 3/4, a little less than half, 1/3. So we say al-amr wasa', that it was flexible. How much? وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. So the tartil is meant to mean to recite the Quran in a contemplative fashion. The ulama of qira'ah, they'll tell you that there's three ways to recite the Quran. There's something called tahqiq, which is to recite in a very deliberate way with emphasizing the makharij al-huruf, the points of articulation of the letters, and also the sifat. And usually this style, or let's say speed and mode of recitation, is for teaching purposes, to teach someone how to pronounce properly. So you say, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, and then, in that way, so that someone can hear the ghunna and the idgham and all the different rules that are applying. And then the tartil is said to be kind of the moderate one, that is not too fast. So a fast of qira'ah would be something called al-hadar, which is to recite quickly without sacrificing any of the rules regarding tajweed, rules regarding pronunciation. So to recite with tajweed, in other words, which is to recite with observance of all of the rules and etiquettes pertaining to qira'ah as has been transmitted. This is an ancient science. So this goes back all the way to the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Anyone who has read qira'ah for ijazah doesn't just kind of read in terms of the transmission of the narration of the particular qira'ah of the Quran, but also for the perfection or the tajweed of al-kayfiyah, how to read the Quran properly. And reading the Quran properly means reading it with ahkam al-tajweed, reading it with the rules of pronunciation and enunciation and utterance and so forth. And why is this important? Because this is the way that the Prophet ﷺ recited the Quran. So when you recite the Quran and you're reciting it with tajweed, you are reciting it in the manner that the Prophet ﷺ recited it. And so that's why we have this emphasis upon it. So a tartil then is the moderate qira'ah speed or modality. So it's deliberate and it's contemplative, and it's not al-hadar, which is something to recite it faster. There are riwayat, you will read in some of the books, that there were imams who somehow were able to recite the Quran, all of it in one night, or even all of it between Maghrib and Isha. This has been narrated on both Imam Abu Hanifa wa Imam al-Shafi'i radiallahu anhu, and others who may have had multiple recitations of the Quran, yani khitam, completely in the night. And some of them, even there's reports that between al-Rukn al-Yamani and al-Hajar in Mecca, so that space between the last part of the tawaf, that they were able to recite the whole Quran. And then you might say, how's that possible? That's impossible. How could someone possibly recite all of that so quickly? And we say this is min khawariq al-adat. This is something that is a miraculous thing. It's a saintly miracle. And so that means in the ru'ah, in their soul, in their spirit, they have heard and recited themselves all of the Quran, right? But in a manner that no one else can, that could have only been done if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them this miraculous thing. Otherwise, the observed sunnah is the Prophet ﷺ said that one should not complete the Quran in less than 3 days. Otherwise, that there will not be the requisite contemplation. And so we don't, we go by the general rulings, we don't go by exceptions to those who are able to do an exception. Just like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he gave all of his wealth away in sadaqah. And yet the Quran says that one should يَتَّخِذْ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ سَبِيلًا, so not to give all of it away and not to hold all of it back, but something in between. Then there are going to be exceptions, certain exceptions for those who are of that caliber and that fortitude, that they will do that. But generally speaking, the tartil of the Quran means that one should recite it in a deliberate, contemplative manner, like this. يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا. هكذا, so that you're thinking about it, you're contemplating, and so forth. And then those people who are able to do it in a different way, then it's really their heart, and the heart doesn't have a a speed delimiter on it. Like if you buy a very fast sports car, sometimes they'll put a speed delimiter, so maybe your car can do 200 kilometers per hour or 150 miles an hour or more, or 300 kilometers per hour. 200 kilometers per hour is not that fast. So they have something on the engine called the speed delimiter. So even if you press on the gas, it's not going to go faster than that. So similarly, the tongue, you can only recite so with your tongue, but that which your heart can recite and then is imbibed within you, and you can hear it in your heart, there's no limit on that speed. That's something for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to determine. So that's how, at least how I understand these riwayat, these narrations of people who are able to recite the Quran many times in one night, or in one rak'ah, and things like that. And we heard recently there are people who at the beginning of Ramadan, they recite the Quran, all of it in one night, and they actually do that. And they spend all night doing it. And so it is something that is possible. إِنَّا سَنُلْقِي عَلَيْكَ قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا. We shall send a momentous message down to you. So this qawl al-thaqil, what is this qawl al-thaqil? What is this heavy word? Thaqil means heavy. Here the translator translated as momentous. So the wahi actually was momentous, but is also thaqil, even in a literal way. So some of the narrations, the Prophet ﷺ, when a type, he received the wahi, the revelation, in different ways, but sometimes it would come directly to his heart, and he said, وَهَذَا أَشَدُّهُ عَلَيْهِ, he used to say, this is the most severe in terms of me absorbing it. And if he was on an animal, he would have to get off because it would be too heavy for the animal, the camel or the horse or the mule, while the Prophet ﷺ would be on top of it. And if it was sitting next to somebody and his leg would be on somebody, they would say they feel like the leg would break as the wahi is coming down. So it's qawl thaqil, it's momentous, and it's a heavy word. Heavy in terms of the meanings, right? Keep in mind, this is kalamullah al-munazzal. This is the pre-eternal words of God, al-munazzal, that has been revealed in Arabic language. Right? So Arabic language is the conduit by which we understand kalamullah al-nafsi, that the actual meanings of the pre-eternal speech of God. So it's an attribute of God. So not the mushaf, not the actual physical book, but that is a conduit that conveys to us those meanings that are timeless, right? That's why we say revealed. We don't say written down or recorded, or no, because it's part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So qawlan thaqila, or they said thaqil ala al-kafirin wal munafiqin. Thaqil, heavy on those who disbelieve and those who pretend to outwardly show Islam, but inwardly they have disbelief. It's thaqil, right? It's heavy, it's momentous. إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا. Night prayer makes a deeper impression and sharpens words, as he describes it. إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا, and you are kept busy for long periods of the day. So the night recitation, or the ibadah of the night, or the worship of the night in general, they say is, as the verse says, is aqwam. أقوم قيل وأشد وطأ. So al-wata means penetrative, right? It hits here, or makes a deeper impression, as he calls it, than that of the day. Why? What's the difference? The night, there's a stillness. There's a night, there's a quietude. The night, and as the verse after it says, you're not busy, because it says وَإِنَّ لَكَ فِي النَّهَارِ سَبْحًا طَوِيلًا. والسبح مش التسبيح, not you making tasbih. Sabah means you're busy, you're attending to the needs of the Muslims, or you're attending to needs of your family, or attending to the needs of others. So there's not the sukoon, right? There's not the stillness and the quietude that one finds in the night. In the night you find that. And so the words then will make a deeper impression. And this was the salihin, this was the way of the salihin. They would spend their days dedicated in service of God, in service of others, in service of their families. Making a living is called also in service. And then the real solitude, the real solace, the real, let's call it, as we say, tarawih, we say that in Ramadan, but they had tarawih all year round in terms of this thing they go back to of how they relax, which is to be alone at night with their Lord. Right? This would give them the recharge. This would give them shuhna, right, like a recharge, and be ready for the next day of service. And that's why it's more penetrative. Unfortunately, we've developed new sunnah, and at night we spend it in entertainment and frivolous things, and we stay up all hours of the night staring at screens without any benefit, and then we struggle to sleep at night, and we don't sleep very comfortably, and then we wake up by alarms, artificial sounds that wake us up, because otherwise we would continue to sleep, and we've gotten out of our the natural rhythm, which is to sleep at night, and also to spend part of the day in worship, a part of the night in worship as well. And I recall reading an article not too long ago that said that pre-modern people, Muslim and non-Muslim alike, would sleep in in two spurts at night. So they'd have like a preliminary early night sleep, then they'd wake up in the middle of the night, and then if they're Muslim, they're praying, and even if they're Christian, they're praying and reading and attending to things, and then they go back to sleep and then wake up at dawn. And so that was kind of more of the way that people used to contend with the rhythm of the day and their night. And now we tend to stay up quite late, and the many hadith talk about the offensive nature of staying up after Isha, except for something that is beneficial, that brings benefit. And I think one of the things that is try to habit form in Ramadan and then try to carry it outside after Ramadan is to devote, make our time after Isha something beneficial, and not just kind of in frivolous things. I mean, it's okay, I think, for the occasional spending time with family and maybe even taking in some sort of, at least innocuous entertainment like a movie or something like that. But I think there should be also, for the most of the time, a kind of focus. And I think if this pandemic has showed us anything, and that, when all these other things are shut off, that this is the thing that will never be shut off. Your door to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never be on lockdown. The door will never be locked. No governor or no head of state is going to tell you, you can't access this thing. They can tell us, don't access your malls, don't access your restaurants, don't access your barber for a haircut, but no one can tell us, don't access Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That door is always open. And if that door is open, and it's especially penetrative at night, then we need to have sort of a new culture of night, right? These things, they're easier to implement when there's a culture around you that's doing it. It's much more difficult to do when everybody's doing something completely different. So one starts with oneself, and then perhaps they introduce into their family this kind of culture of making more of a benefit and use of the night. Allahu a'lam. And it said Zayn al-Abidin in one of the tafsir that he used to spend between Maghrib and Isha praying. And that was also one of the practices of many of the Salihin. They used to call that Salat al-Awwabin. Salat al-Awwabin. Wal-Awwab الذي يرجع إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى أو يعود إليه أو دائم التوبة أو دائم الإياب إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى. So the Awwab is the one who is constantly returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So between Maghrib and Isha, which is not that much time, actually, usually it's going to be about an hour, 20 minutes after you finish the prayer. So many of them would spend that time in prayer and so forth. And then many also would spend the time from Fajr till sunrise. So if you had to kind of choose, those are very good times to not necessarily spend all of the time if you can't do that, but just some of it. Introduce this into your life. ثم يقول الله عز وجل واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا. واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا. So celebrate the name of your Lord and devote yourself wholeheartedly to Him, right? And that's what tabattul means. Tabattul means give all of yourself up in complete submission and immersion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tabattul. Sometimes the word tahannuth is used also, like Aisha described the Prophet ﷺ used to go to Ghar Hira ويتحنث, right? And that means isolation accompanied with prayer. And so prayer can be made more powerful if it's accompanied by something like isolation, al-uzla, or more powerful if it's done in the night. وهكذا. So this is the tabattul, tabtila. رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا. So the Lord of the Mashriq and the Maghrib, the Lord of the East and the West, no God but Him, so take Him as your wakil, right? The one tatawakkal alayhi, that you put all of your reliance upon, that one is your protector. So the relationship of that verse with the verses that come before it is there are means by which we can imbibe this in our heart, that we see Allah as our protector. And in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, I think narrated by Ibn Majah, Qiyamul Layl Sharaful Mu'min. Qiyamul Layl Sharaful Mu'min. The prayer at night is the honor of the believer. Right? Standing in prayer at night, not seeking anyone else. No one sees you. You're not getting any likes for it on Facebook or retweeting it on Twitter, and away from the the prying eyes and only between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That type of munajah, right? There's a word that describes when it's only you and Allah and you see nothing else. Munajah. And munajah means to have a secret, intimate discourse with someone. Here with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tunaji rabbak, the verb form. Tunaji rabbak. Yani you are having this alone time with you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this physical then alone time then will lead to this sort of secret alone time in all of your affairs. And this is what they describe as al-khalwa fil jalwa. So khalwa, like you're alone, but fil jalwa, and you're amongst people. So you could be amongst people and you got like your outer shell is dealing with people, but your core, your lub, your essence has not strayed from your Lord. You're always there with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so you can be speaking and smiling and sharing a coffee with someone, but your heart never strays away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the state that we seek to imbibe, to have. And then I'll just do one last verse in the interest of time. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. Patiently endure what they say and ignore them politely. And that's kind of the meaning, an added layer to this khalwa fil jalwa. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ. Be patient in what they say to you of that which is injurious, that which is offensive. وَهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. But at the same time have this hujran, ignore them or leave them in your heart, detach from them in your heart. But what type of detachment? Hajran jamila. A very amazing way that it's said. Usually when we say, okay, I'm done with that person, I'm out, I'm not dealing with them, it comes off as very abrasive and like there's a sort of ego about it, the way that people say it. But here, so al-hajr al-jamil is to detach from them in a beautiful way. In other words, detach from them in your heart, but maintain a rapport with them outwardly. The Prophet ﷺ heard so many harmful things from his own family members. They called him a magician, they called him a sorcerer, they called him a soothsayer, they called him crazy, they called him someone who's trying to destroy their society. All of these accusations were levied against the Prophet ﷺ from even his closest people, from his own family members, from Abu Lahab himself, his own uncle, and others that he knew growing up, and these people practically raised him, and then this is their reaction. So, when you hear harmful words, it hurts the most from people that you're close to. Harmful words from somebody you don't know doesn't have that much resonance, but someone that you know very well and you had high hopes for, to hear from them there is a strong impact of that. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking to the Prophet ﷺ begins at the beginning of the surah, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, right? You're cloaked up, but now it's time. And in the other surah, Mudaththir, Qum fa'anthir, stand and now warn. So there's like this, there's this urgency of it's time to get this thing started, right? It's time for you now to go from a da'wah sirriya and to a da'wah jahriya, or from fatrat al-wahi to the, to a more struggle in terms of the wahi and conveying that message. And so what's going to give you fortitude, what's going to get you through all of this? Your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is when the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned, "Adabani Rabbi fa'ahsana ta'dibi." My Lord has inculcated with me this adab, and He gave me the best inculcation. So, this is the beginning of the Prophet's career, at least when this surah was revealed. And so we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is raising him in rank and raising him in degree, and basically bringing him close to Him, and that's how he became Habibullah, the beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who are the lovers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and lovers of His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also the beloved. Make us beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and beloved to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.